Almost 3 minutes till. Thanks everybody for coming by to let us introduce our new welfare reform bill. Representative McColley, who's a joint sponsor on the bill in the House, and Senator Coley, who will be the carry same legislation in the Senate. Every 2 years, as you guys probably realize, we go through this budget process. And one thing we've always learned in the budget process is there's always limited dollars, but a lot of demand for those dollars. So what this bill will do is help stretch those dollars, those limited Medicaid and SNAP dollars, by reducing the fraud in the system. What the bill does is require that the states do a better job of verifying who is receiving the benefits. The bill doesn't burden the current recipients. It only affects people who should no longer be receiving benefits. Several states have already introduced similar legislation, and we've seen savings of 2 to 4% on the Medicaid side, plus additional on the SNAP side. Let me emphasize, this is not removing benefits for people who really are in need of assistance. So now I'll let Senator Coley introduce some more details of the bill.
And Representative Henne, thank you for the introduction, and thanks for your work, both of you. Thank you for your work over in the House. As you point out, this is anti-fraud legislation, and there's only a fixed number of dollars that can go around, and the key is to get those dollars to the people who truly need them. Some of you read about the case up in East Cleveland where a very wealthy individual, east side of town, who was receiving Medicaid benefits, happened to, great work on their reporters. In that case, it found that case, and the video was really well done, and the local sheriff's office there took in and did the investigation. There were arrests made, and point of the matter is, if I can say this out to the people who are out there, and you know who you are if you're cheating the system. You know that you don't qualify. You know that you shouldn't be receiving benefits from the state. Stop it. Stop it right now, because we're going to catch you, and when we catch you, you're looking at criminal prosecution. Now, this has happened in other states, and what's happened in my colleagues in Maine told me they ran these cross-checks, and they found 7 individuals who owned homes valued at more than $1 million in Maine. In Illinois, they ran these kind of cross-checks against their computer systems. They found they were paying 8,000 people who had already died, and those checks were still going out. All states have had situations where individuals who are currently registered to vote and residents in another state, usually farther south in a warmer climate, are still receiving benefits from their old home state up in the north. And in our case, we are fairly convinced that when we run these checks, we're going to find people in Florida and Tennessee and in the Carolinas who are receiving benefits from Ohio, even though they've since relocated and are currently voting in another state and living in another state. So that's the point of this legislation. It's anti-fraud legislation. It's designed to eliminate fraud and get the money to people who truly need it. One of the things we're going to require is a quarterly verification, a quarterly check, where we run this system, we run these cross-checks through the computers at least once a quarter. Because people's circumstances, it's just called life, people's circumstances change and it evolves. And as those things change, the first inclination when you get an opportunity to get a job, or you have some good fortune land upon you, and you acquire some wealth, your first inclination isn't go, oh geez, I need to call the state of Ohio and remind them to stop my benefits on that. And those kind of things, by staying on top of the system, we prevent situations where someone who's no longer eligible yet receives checks for an extended period of time, and then they have to go and repay that money back to the state. So we feel that making this making this happen on a more regular basis will prevent a lot of those problems. And it's the use of technology. You know, as I indicated, the state of Illinois found 8,000 dead people. Well, cross-check, when you run the check, run it to the death records. When you look at people who have had some good fortune and, you know, their desire to spend $1 to help the kids of the state of Ohio and buy a lottery ticket, and they were the 1 in a million, and they got a large check from the lottery system. Cross-check that, and let's take them off the rolls from that. Real estate ownership, I talked about the occurrences in Maine. When you run the real estate records, which are computerized against the lottery records, and you cross-check those, you run into anomalies there where people who own a very valuable property and are receiving benefits, those are red flags that need to be investigated. So the point of this bill and the work that we're doing in the House and the Senate is to make sure that people who are truly in need receive that assistance, and that people who do not or should not receive those benefits do not receive those benefits. And with that, tag my friend here and move on.
Thank you, Senator Coley, and thank you, Representative Henne, for all of your work on this. And really, just to conclude, this is primarily about being good stewards of taxpayer dollars. As Representative Henne mentioned, we are in a time where there's an increased demand for all of these dollars, especially in these entitlement programs, that we need to be aware of and that we need to take a serious look at, and across our entire state budget, to make sure that we're being good stewards of these dollars. We have this responsibility not only to all of the taxpayers in Ohio, but specifically to the people who are already in this program legally and rightfully. And that's really what we're doing with this legislation, is we are increasing accountability, we're increasing our role of oversight over these programs to make sure that we are responsibly administering these programs so that people on these programs can be on them, and we know that they are on them legally, we know that they're being helped by the programs, and that there are not people falling through the cracks who shouldn't be on the programs and who are using it and realistically stealing money out of taxpayer coffers. So with that, I guess we'll turn it over to you guys if you guys have any questions.